Heidi ho, everyone. How are you doing? This is Sharon Combs with UCDI Leadership, a subsidiary of Do Something Daily LLC. Hey, listen, today we're going to talk about trust. Trust, what it is not. First off, trust is something that says something is reliable. It is a firm belief in the reliability of something or someone. If you think about a floorboard, you want to test it out before you put your weight in it so that you trust it can hold the weight of you. I mean, you don't want to fall, you don't want it to cave in and not be able to hold the weight of you. And relationships are built on trust. So the way that we're talking about trust today, we're going to talk about it in a professional arena and within a professional discipline. Sometimes when I say the term discipline, people think of reprimand or correction, but discipline is actually a field of study. Discipline is something that when you engage in it consistently over time, you actually become an subject matter expert, more skilled in a certain area, a master in that area. Some people call it journeyman, but like because you are so honed in and zoned into that discipline, that field of study, then you become like a master in that field of study. So again, trust in the professional arena in a discipline, in a part of a discipline. First thing I want to say, as it relates whether you are early stage executive or whether you're an entry level employee, trust is something that is built. It is something that can be relied upon, which means there's some type of consistency there. You hear me use the term patterns over promises. Many people say what I can do, what I will do, this, that. I believe them, but I believe the pattern more. And so I go with patterns over promises. You can trust a pattern. People are consistent. You'll hear people say, I want to consistently work out, or I want to be more consistent in having a voice in my department, having a voice with my team. They're already consistent. Whether they're consistent in the area they're desiring it in, that's another question, but we are already consistent. If you hit snooze every morning, you're consistently hitting snooze. And so people are consistent. People have patterns and patterns over promises. You literally have to lean in and exert some type of will or force to cause a pattern to shift, whether that is within yourself or within your team. There has to be some counteractive force to shift a pattern, to shift consistency, so the consistency begins to serve you in the way that you want it to serve you, your team, your organization, your professional development, your career, your business. There needs to be some type of some force exerted there, whether that's physical force, mental fortitude, whatever it is. Something has to happen to cause there to be a shift in the consistency that we already have. And so with trust is all of those things. And I also want to say this: trust is very hard to regain. Again, whether you are an early stage executive or an entry level employee, frontline employee, just coming into your field, trust is something that you want to protect, you want to establish it, and you want to protect it because it is very hard to regain. Very hard. Will Smith, don't get caught on the slap right now, but Will Smith has a pattern of being positive, of being somebody visible that people have looked to as a star. Maybe not a role model, but a good guy type of thing. And so there was something he did where he actually did something out of character, and it broke trust. It doesn't matter that he has 30 years of doing something else. That one thing that one thing caused his 30 years to be minimized just like that. And so trust is very hard to regain, and it's very hard to regain professionally. And so when we talk about trust, not just how you show up daily in your conversation, whether you're on time, but also how are you with your deliverables? How are you at self correcting? How are you at monitoring your own progress, let alone how somebody else may monitor your progress? How are you with those things? Because people trust that too. If you say you're going to have A, B, and C done, do you have A, B, and C done? It's not about perfection. I'm just talking about trust. And so trust is very hard to regain. And so you really want to work on things that demonstrate trustworthiness, that demonstrate trustworthiness. Another thing within the professional arena that can undermine trust is conversation. Stay with me. Conversation. If you spend a lot of your conversation wanting to detract or distract from detract from someone or another company, or distract from the fact that something is not done, that is undermining trust in you. You may feel like you're talking about somebody else, but you actually are showing yourself and locating yourself. I'm just going to let that one drizzle down. Think about it. Just think about it. Because if someone is asking you about what did you do and your accountability, and you remain talking about someone else and what someone else didn't do, then you're not taking the ownership that needs to be taken there. Control what you can control, and we can't control other people. We can only control ourselves, and we can influence others, but we can't control them. So take some accountability, take some ownership there. If you're showing yourself to continually point to other people and use misdirection, so to speak, that's pointing to a lack of responsibility within yourself. Instead of saying what I didn't do or what I can adjust, and maybe let's look at those results moving forward after I've made this adjustment. Instead, we're talking about other people. That undermines trust in you. I understand it may feel like you're undermining the trust in someone else, but patterns over promises. And if that is your pattern, that's going to be your pattern with whoever you're around, whatever company you're with, whatever relationship, B2B, B2C, or interpersonal relationships that you have. That pattern is going to show up and it's going to reveal itself. And again, trust is very hard to regain. Also, I wanted to say, as far as if we spend a lot of time speaking on other people or other companies to try to detract from them, that's like a character assassination. That's something I learned about in church. Just bear with me. But character assassination, what that means is I actually can't compete with the deliverables, and I can't compete with what they're actually doing. So let me just try to tear down their character. That actually locates yourself again. Now, there may be some people who are frontline, entry level, and they may not know it yet. But people who've been around the block once or twice professionally, they understand that people have patterns. They understand that those patterns are going to continue to show themselves up unless we exert something on it to have a different level of consistency, to be consistent in something else. Yet I digress. Let me bring it back. The last thing I wanted to say with trust and how it's really hard to regain, I wanted to share this with individuals who are early stage executives. We just came out of Women's Month. I'm a woman, I'm a minority. And so, a lot of times in working with people, there are some people who are very happy to see you come, and there's some people who are very happy to see you go. There's some people who are going to be like, man, this person adds a great addition to the team. And there'll be some people who are threatened and like, no, I don't want that. We don't want that person, whoever the person may be. And so I want you to be aware of this pattern too, as it relates to trust. And at the very end, I'm going to talk about Patrick Lencioni's definition of trust. And I want you to take that definition, and then I want you to reverse engineer it and apply it to what everything I've talked about up until that point. And so when you are in a professional workplace, maybe you're new to that place, you're in the honeymoon phase, you're about to go through the stages of transition, and there are stages to transition. There are stages, we all go through it. Honeymoon, top of the world, then maybe some confusion, some insecurity, some frustration. And then we hit a point where it's like crisis. Either we quit or we shake off our ideals, like the ideal situation we thought, not our core value ideals, but what it should have been when we were in the honeymoon phase, and that's what we drew in our mind. We come to terms with the fact that the honeymoon phase is not the sustainable phase. And once we do that, we can actually apply real time solutions to real time challenges. But when you're in that, when you're new in that role and you're coming into a new role of responsibility, a new company, a new relationship, a new field, a new discipline, maybe you left one field and you're joining another, there will be individuals and there'll be opportunities and individuals who may not give you the high five that you think you should get when you come into that role. And here are some things I want you to look for, because when you see these things, do not fight fire with fire. Just double down on the areas you want to be consistent in and stay there, because that is building trust in your performance, that is building trust in your consistency, and that is building trust in your patterns. Don't get caught in someone else's pattern that can be damaging to you professionally and can be damaging to you over the long run in your career. First thing is When you're partnering with someone, they may have the desire to dominate you. Well, what does that look like, Sharon? How will I know if they have the desire to dominate? Uh, they have to have their way, like almost in everything, not the policy. The policy even has to cave to their way, and they want to. That's like a form of dominance, like their will dominates you. But if there are policies and procedures in place, those are the things you really do want to follow. After dominate, if they can't dominate, then they'll begin to deflect. If it comes to something that their department or their team or them themselves, or even me myself, if I was doing it, instead of addressing it and having some of that self responsibility and that ability to self correct that I spoke on earlier in this segment, they'll begin to deflect. Instead of saying like why a deliverable isn't met or why a deliverable consistently is not met, they will begin to talk about something someone else did or didn't do. It doesn't even have to do with the deliverable that you were discussing. And so there'll be the need to dominate. If they cannot dominate, then it'll be the need to deflect. And if they cannot deflect from the matter at hand, right here, this is what we're talking about, this crux, this deliverable, this target, this initiative. If they cannot deflect from that, then they will be dismissive of the reasons or the barriers or the risk associated with that. And so you have dominate. If the dominate doesn't happen, then deflect. If deflecting doesn't work, which is a form of misdirection, then we'll become dismissive of it. Yeah, that really doesn't mean that though. Well, that's not that important. Well, yeah, but this is what's going to happen. And they're dismissive of that very thing. And the last thing they'll do, and this part really can be hurtful for the early stage executive and the entry level employee, because you do want everybody to win. You're excited. You're in your honeymoon phase. So you want everybody to be on the honeymoon because you're excited about it. The last thing is demonize. Demonize is where I'm not talking about lack of accountability. If someone is doing something wrong, if you're really doing something wrong, then adjust and deal with it. But when you are actually doing your job and you're being consistent in the areas you want to see consistency in, then it is likely that sometimes in your field, people will demonize you. You cannot get stuck with that and you can't demonize them back. Even if you feel like it, even if you want to get your lick back, I want to encourage you to hold your form and keep your eyes on the deliverables. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on your scope of work and what you are hired to do. If they're demonizing or they're speaking in character assassination, maybe talk about it when you go home with your significant other, maybe talk about it in your place of faith. But as far as professional development and professional career scaling, increased marketability, keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize because that is still building trust. That's building your pattern of being consistent, of staying focused, of being able to keep your eye on the ball, of being able to stay attached to your deliverables and your initiatives and see them come to fruition. Keep your eye on the prize and don't be distracted by those D's I talked about. And why, you say, am I talking about that? Because when you have trust, as it comes from Patrick Lencioni, he has this 5 dysfunctions of a team, but he talks about trust. And trust, in the way he says it, isn't just about being reliable. It's about understanding the patterns, and everybody has the same end goal in mind. And once you are consistent in the desired areas of consistency, once you have those patterns, not just promises, what will happen is everybody begins to realize, your team will realize, based on your patterns, not your promises, that we are working toward the same goal, that they can trust you with the initiatives they've given to you. And then they can share things with you. Maybe those things work well, maybe they don't. But the fact of the matter is, they trust enough to share it, even if it fails. They're not afraid of the failure. Like once that trust is established there, and I know your pattern, and I know that you are for the end goal, even if you try something and it does not work, that's not a deal breaker because I understand you're still attempting to move toward the goal. And we're going to learn from whatever those failures are. We're going to get some real-time lessons, some real-time data, analytics, things to help strengthen our next attempt at something. And so again, trust is very hard to regain. But once you have trust in somebody's commitment level and LinkedIn level to be able to go toward the end goal, then that trust means they are free to succeed or fail in the initiatives along the way and the mile markers along the way. And when you have a place where you can do that, that's a really good place. That's a really good place for you to be in, because you're going to learn, they're going to learn. And because we're still moving toward the same goal, then those things aren't really looked at as failures or super poor performance. It's looked at as, okay, that didn't work. What's another way that we can get it done? It's not all or nothing. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Let's tweak it. So I just wanted to talk about trust. I said a lot about trust, and I spoke about trust professionally, not interpersonally, like you and your lover or your significant other, but as it relates to being in the field. I just wanted to share that with you all. This has been a quick teaching on that. Y'all have a great day. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach me, 214-717-5921. You can text me any question that you have, and I or someone on my team will get back to you. Or if you'd like to set up a time to speak with me, just go to my website, www.sharoncombs, SHARYNCOMBS.com, and book some time on my calendar. Have a wonderful day, and remember, trust is really hard to regain. You owe it to yourself to be consistent, and you owe it to yourself to focus on your targets and your deliverables, your team's targets and your team's deliverables. That will help you along the way.